Singer for Star Playhouse presents Charles Boyer, Dick Powell, David Niven, Ida Lupino.
Dick Powell in Shadows.
Hold it, Frank.
Yes, sir.
What do you want?
Remember me, Stroude?
Boyce Martin. All right, Frank, you can put the car away.
It's been a long time. I didn't know if you'd remember.
I remember. What do you want?
I got a message for you. Didn't you get her letter? Dell's letter.
Well, I haven't heard from Dell since the day she went back to you. That was 12 years ago, last May.
Last May the 14th.
Why should she have written me now?
She's dying. A month ago, the doctor at the mountain school told her she didn't have long to live. She's been pining ever since. Not about dying, because, well, Dell isn't afraid even of that. About something I thought was over and done with. She wants to see you. She wrote you a letter, but she didn't have your address. She was afraid you wouldn't get it.
Come on in the house, we can talk.
I didn't come here to visit. I only come because Dell asked me to. She wants to see you. She said to me, I want to see him again before I die. Please, boys, tell him I want to see him before I die. He promised he'd come.
Well, I can't come right now. Maybe in a few days.
In a few days, she'll be dead.
But this is a critical time for me. A lot of important things to do. I can't let my personal obligation to Dell interfere right now. Besides,
It couldn't hurt your wife even if she knew. And Dell's dying.
I'm sorry, Boyce. Tell her that...
I won't tell her nothing but that you wouldn't come. She always said you'd get to be a big man someday.
Well, if it were just some other time.
A big man.
Good evening, Mr. Stroude.
Even better.
Mrs. Stroude went to the theater with Mr. and Mrs. Covington.
Oh, the Covingtons, huh?
Yes, sir.
Well, she should return soon.
She said to tell you, you have an appointment tonight with Senator Manning and 2 other gentlemen. They're stopping here after the governor's dinner. She said it was very important.
Thanks, Benton.
Mr. Stroude, there's a Mr. James Robertson in the library, a reporter.
Thanks. Oh, sorry to disturb you at this late hour, Mr. Stroude. Must be something important. You could have reached me in my office today.
Yes, sir, but this just came up this evening.
Oh?
Besides, I like these late evening chats with important people. They're more relaxed. I get more information.
What came up?
Oh, a little gossip, a little behind-the-scenes talk, a little conjecture. The senatorial nomination, Mr. Stroude, is just about in the bag, isn't it?
Well, what is this, talk, gossip, or conjecture?
Mix well, shake, and serve. What I heard, Mr. Stroude, is that Coventry is just about ready to swing to you.
That should serve up a nice drink.
Yes, sir. He's the balance of power.
I know.
There was a time when Coventry leaned toward Corliss.
You seem to know more than I do. What made him change his mind?
Some old scandal in Corliss past. You know Coventry, the old guard type, prudent, straight-laced.
Yes.
Can I get a confirmation, sir?
Well, not from me, I'm afraid. Wouldn't Coventry be a more direct source?
Yes, but there are some questions that only you can answer, sir. Will you accept the nomination if it's offered?
United States Senator's a high office.
But not the highest.
High enough, Mr. Robertson.
You know, it's curious, Mr. Stroude. I'm a political reporter. Maybe I'm oversensitive on occasion, but I've felt for some time that there's a certain personal reluctance about your career. And it's puzzling, because all the behind-the-scenes moves appear to be carefully planned with clear purpose. Reminds me of the old days, before old Peter Orman died, when he was running things. The way he timed his moves, the way he pulled his strings. No offense, Mr. Stroude. I know that Mrs. Stroude is Peter Orman's daughter.
I think we'd better drop the subject.
Of course. Perhaps in the morning?
At the office.
Thank you. No offense. Really, sir.
Good night, Robertson.
Good night.
Burt?
Oh, hello, dear. Was the play deadly?
No, but the Coventers were. I was playing your game tonight, dear.
Isn't it your game, too, Rhoda?
In a way, yes. But this involved a real sacrifice. And I want a reward.
Oh, Coventry isn't a bad sort. Perhaps a little too straight-laced.
And he swings a large delegation upstate. But did you ever have to listen to his wife?
There have been times when I had to pretend to listen.
Would you like a drink?
I'll fix it.
You know we're expecting company.
Benton told me. Senator Manning. You see why he wanted to see me tonight?
Only that it was important. And he's bringing Mr. Laughlin and Mr. Wilk with him.
Well, he probably said Mr. Wilk and Mr. Laughlin, but you put them in the order of their importance.
This means they're going to ask you to take the nomination, doesn't it?
Well, they haven't the entire giving of it, Rhoda.
Oh, don't quibble, Burt. You know you're the logical man. Squarely based in party politics.
Safe and steady.
But picturesque enough to be a good campaigner. Barefoot boy from the mountains. Good American stock with solid traditions. Fine tub-thumping phrases.
You've been coached well.
I was coached before I ever knew you, Burt, dear. Father taught me politics as religiously as Mother taught us sewing. Old-fashioned politics, perhaps, and not as practical as nowadays.
There haven't been many men more practical than Peter Orman.
Because he was wealthy. You know how high he kept his standards.
You earned a reward. Spending an evening with the Coventers. What would you like?
I was only teasing. But I've already got it. Mrs. Coventry let something slip that may be very vital to us.
Well, if she let it slip, it was deliberate.
She said Coventry isn't returning upstate until tomorrow night. There's an important conference at the governor's tomorrow at noon.
Oh, so that's why Senator Manning wants to see me tonight.
Mrs. Coventry said the fates would be decided tomorrow. Those are her very words. She's bombastic, you know. Coventry could do it, couldn't he? He's that delicate balance of power that he will do it, Burt. Senator Stroude. To United States Senator Burt Stroude.
Let's not launch the ship until it's built.
I've always known. I've always known you'd be a great man. Senator first, and then... It's all in the believing, Burt. The way I believed in you from the very beginning.
Is that why you married me, Rhoda?
I suppose it was part of it. Part of being in love with you. What about you, Burt? Were you in love with me when you married me?
Why else do men marry women?
To put other women out of their lives sometimes. I never knew until today who she was.
But you knew?
I knew there was something. I opened this by mistake. She's dying. She wants you to go to her.
I know. On my way home tonight, her husband followed me, wanted me to go back with him.
Then she married after you.
She was married when I met her. Told me about being married. She said, if I ever really need you, Burt, you'll come to me, won't you? I promised. This is the first word from her.
Strange, isn't it? Live so many years with a man and...
Should I have told you?
I don't know. I probably would have married you anyway. Are you going to her, Burt?
How can I? Tomorrow's the conference.
Do you want to go to her?
I wonder if you'll understand me, Rhoda. All things being equal, I should go tonight. No sense of failing you, no idea of helping her, but I promised. I promised I'd come to her if she needed me.
No. Even if there weren't the conference, you couldn't. You're a marked man now. You couldn't go back to a little village in the mountains without it being known, and the reason for it shouted in every newspaper in the state. It wouldn't do, would it? You wanted this nomination too long to throw away all chance for it.
I'm not sure I ever wanted it.
You don't mean I've been forcing you onto something you never really wanted.
It isn't quite that simple, Rhoda. I suppose in marrying you, I also married the Armand Hope. Old Peter set a standard.
What about his standard? You never really knew him, not the way I knew him. Why, he gave his whole life for his country. He stood for honesty and idealism.
He must have imparted idealism to his family. At least you're stocked upon it. You got it someplace.
Everything I've ever worked for, we've ever worked for you. Wanting it for you, Burt.
Wanting it. Maybe just wanting becomes the most important thing. Wanting power, like wanting money, you give up everything to get it, and then in the end it gets you.
It's a long time late, Burt.
I've already made my choice, haven't I? Yes?
Senator Manning and two gentlemen are in the drawing room, sir.
Send them in here, Benton. Senator?
Stroud?
Good evening, Senator Manning.
How do you do?
Hello, Stroud. Good evening,
Mr.
Mrs. Stroud.
Wells.
Mr. Laughlin, Rhoda, Mrs. Stroud.
How do you do, Mr. Wilk?
Lover?
How are you?
If you gentlemen will excuse me, I'll...
Oh, I think this concerns you too, dear. You don't mind if my wife stays, do you?
Not at all.
No.
Will you sit down?
It's nice that you've guessed something of our mission, Burt. Makes it easier for us.
Oh, I couldn't help but knowing when even a political reporter knows.
Yeah, there's smoke all over the place. But this time, there's fire behind the smoke. It's been a rough hassle. There's a conference at the governor's tomorrow, and we want...
At noon.
Your information is as speedy as it is correct. The exact time of this meeting wasn't set until 7 o'clock tonight. Only 6 men knew it.
And their wives.
This is an important election, Stroud, and Senator Manning's got to have the right man with him in Washington. The kind of a man we can point to higher things. I don't mind telling you that we've canvassed the field thoroughly. As Bannister, he's too old. Maxwell, too theatrical. Stearns, too variable. Durham is too light. Landreau hasn't the necessary tradition. And Jarvis has jumped the party. We've eliminated everyone except you.
What about Corliss?
Yeah, Corliss. There's a strong faction in the party that's solid behind him, but they won't get anywhere without Covenger's support.
Corliss comes from Covenger's part of the state.
But Covenger frightens easy. He's going to throw in with us.
What's he frightened of?
Corliss has an old scandal against him. Covenger's afraid it might make an election issue. By the way, Stroud, perhaps you're not interested in these affairs, Mrs. Stroud.
You needn't hold anything back from me, Mr. Wilk.
All right. What's the charge?
Someone in Corliss's camp says there's an old story back in the hills, Stroud. Says it might explode any time. Now, we've all known you a long time. All except Laughlin here. And we've never heard a whisper of it.
What's the story?
Oh, I'm positive there's nothing in it.
What's the story?
That you stole another man's wife.
There was no theft about it. She had left her husband. I didn't know she was married. Later, when she went back to her husband, I left the hills, started to practice law, and married. Mrs. Stroud never heard the story until tonight. It's an old story. It's not going to explode unless...
Unless what, Mr. Stroud?
Unless I set it off myself. It was many years ago in a small community in the mountains. I know those people there. They're my kind. They're not going to talk to strangers coming in. There's only one way the newspapers could get the story. If I lead them to it.
That's right. I know the mountains.
Then it's settled.
A story as old as that can't be a very appalling Banquo's ghost. Then you'll be at the conference tomorrow, just to make sure. We've hit Covenger pretty hard, but we've got to make sure this time he's really nailed.
If it's necessary.
Good.
A real Star Chamber session, according to the best rules of old Peter Armand. Ah, wouldn't the old pirate have loved to set in on a 10-minute parley like this?
What do you mean, Mr. Laughlin?
Always had a soft spot in my heart for old Peter. Although I've known what a wolf in sheep's clothing he was. Gotta hand it to him. With all his grafting, he was a great party builder.
It's been a long day. Good night, Stroud.
Yes. Good night. Good night, Rhoda. Good night, Stroud.
Good night, Senator.
Burt. Is Mr. Laughlin speaking the truth about my father, or what he thinks is the truth?
The truth.
My father? Grafter? Not an idealist at all?
Rhoda.
You've always known.
Since before I knew you.
All these years. False standards.
They aren't false, Rhoda. The standards are true enough.
But the man who gave them to me wasn't. You said I'd been coached well. All the things I've ever believed.
You're making everything black and white. Life isn't like that. Don't let a chance word of Laughlin's bother you. He didn't know you're Peter Ormond's daughter. He'd have cut out his tongue if he did.
It isn't only what Mr. Laughlin said. It isn't only finding out that my father was something less than I thought he was. What hurts is knowing I've given you so little. I used to think I was helping you, giving you something fine and splendid.
But you have, Rhoda. It doesn't matter what Peter Ormond was, only what you are.
All mixed up. How often you must have laughed at me.
No.
Been sorry for me then.
No?
Forcing you into a career you never really wanted. It's funny, isn't it? One woman set you free so that another woman could take away your freedom. You said you can't go back now. Too much depended on it. You said you've made your choice. That's my game, isn't it, Burt?
Well, we both played it.
You don't have to make excuses for me. I've played the game for its own sake, and I've loved it.
Perhaps playing it has come to mean everything to you. And if there were no game to play, if I did something that ruined it, there'd be nothing left for you, would there?
Spend all these years with a woman and then not know her at all.
If I could know that playing the game isn't the biggest thing in your life.
Then what? Do you think we'd have something you and she had?
So many years ago.
But still burning bright. I've read her letter, Burt, I know. You ought to read it. It'd tear your heart out the way it tore mine out. She's dying and she wants you there. She wants you to hold her hand. Just hold her hand before she dies. So much in love with you. The kind of love we never had. You said it before. The greatest thing in life is being loved. Well, I wouldn't know.
Hello.
Hello? I want to speak to Burt Stroude.
Speaking.
Oh, Stroude, this is Phil Covington. Lovely wife you have, Stroude. Very charming.
Thank you.
I just wanted to check with you. Manning and the others have been there, haven't they?
Well, they left a few minutes ago.
Everything all right?
Well, they seem to leave in a good frame of mind.
Good. See you tomorrow at the governor's then. Reason we're so careful, Stroude, is this is just a grooming for bigger things.
You know what I mean?
I think I do, yes.
See you at noon, Stroude. Good night.
Good night, Covington. Frank.
Yes, sir?
Would you bring the car around front, please?
Yes, sir.
And tell Benton to come in the library.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Stroude.
Oh, Benton, I want you to call my office in the morning and leave a message for my secretary. Ask her to call Senator Manning and tell him I will not be at the conference.
Yes, sir.
Now, would you get my coat and hat, please?
Right away, sir.
Is Mrs. Stroude in her room?
No, sir. Mrs. Stroude left the house.
Oh, I see.
Your hat, Mr. Stroude.
Good night, Ben.
Good night, Mr. Stroude.
Union Station, Frank.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Stroude told me.